Haymaker Coffee Company was established in 2021 to create the best coffee to fuel the underdogs who perseveres, who hustles, and have the give-it-all mentality to achieve their American dream. Haymaker Coffee only roasts top quality, specialty grade coffee beans, resulting in brews that satisfies those who demand every drop from their coffee and day. If you work hard, run hard, fight hard, and play hard, we have your coffee right here. And we're back, Stripe Show podcast on a Tuesday here in November. I'm your host, Travis Holt. Thank you for making us part of your day. Still figuring out my new mixer here. Yesterday, the podcast, it sounded a lot better than I thought it was going to. I had it all wired up. I got Bob Herring on from SI.com, and I could hear him in one ear, not in the other, but I sounded decent. And then it kind of like reversed as we were going halfway. I don't know. I mean, just when you think you got it all figured out with this stuff and everything's ready to go, you don't. And then you try to fix it on your own. That's kind of the world of entrepreneurship when you have to wear all these different hats. But it actually turned out really well. So thank you for listening to that. Always enjoy reading Bob Herrick's stuff. Check him out on Twitter. He's a good follow. And, he's just a reliable source when it comes to all of this movement in professional golf. So it was well received. Go check it out. If you haven't, leave us a comment, a ranking. Today we look ahead. We've got 2 more tournaments. That's all I'm going to do. I refuse to do anything more on the PGA Tour after the next 2 weeks because, folks, this is the 46th event on the PGA Tour. It's called the Cadence Bank Houston Open. Let's get excited. Let's go. 46th event on the PGA Tour. Let's go. And to help us, we bring back an old reliable and Mr. Trustworthy. It's been a while since he's been on, but he's been making money all season long, having a big year. I know how he does it. His name is Brandon Gups, but you can call him Gup here on the podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Election day, you got another hurricane. Yeah. Is a hurricane going to flirt with you or no?
Well, it's I mean, it's going to hit Melbourne, and then once it gets on land, it'll start to turn north. So I'm looking out my window right now. The winds are starting to go a little bit. So I think we'll get 30 to 40 mile an hour, wind here, but nothing too crazy. I don't think, unless it continues to move east and gets closer. But Melbourne, I think it'll be a Hurricane 1, Category 1 by the time it hits. So it kind of snuck up on us in strengthening.
Yeah, those are always we had an EF4, maybe EF5 tornado just southeast of here last week out of nowhere in November. Wow. We get them in November, but they're normally not as strong as our typical, obviously down in Oklahoma. People don't know I live in Oklahoma, but so we're used to it, but we get them in October, November, but they're always like little. I say little because most people, but EF1s or 2s, but this one, I mean, it dang near destroyed a town in North Texas and South Oklahoma. It was massive. And so you never know. I mean, anything can pop up. And I saw the warning come up for the hurricane. So I figured I got some buddies that live in like Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach. So they're a little closer to where the eye may get to. So
they'll definitely get it.
Yeah,
they're definitely going to get some. It's not as big as the one previous that we had, just a month ago. That was a monster that came up through the Gulf there. But nonetheless, I mean, Hurricane Category 1, you're talking about some serious winds. The surge is, as you saw on the Naples side,
man,
crazy. I mean, just devastating, absolutely devastating. And but look, we're playing golf in the South still, and in Houston in particular as they win the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That never makes me happy as a Mariners fan. I think the Mariners played them tougher than anybody. The Phillies did get couple wins on them, but the Mariners had them twice. They should have won both of those games,
right?
But they didn't. But Houston, kudos to them. They get their World Series ring, and we'll see if there's no cheating allegations that come up afterwards as they did back in 2017. But they're the World Series champ, and now Houston is going to host the PGA Tour event, and they're going to play it at Memorial Park Golf Course. Gup, this is the 3rd season at this place. You've been there. Tell us about it and some things that we're looking at here from maybe some important statistics.
Yeah, it'll it plays as a par 70 for the pros. It's a par 72 for your public or your members or anything like that. But they take two of the at least I think they shorten to the one of the par fives for sure into a par four. But it's a beast. I mean, it's 7,400 yards, 5 par threes, 3 par fives. We've seen the last 2 years very tough scoring. I mean, you get the double digits, you're going to be on the leaderboard or winning come Sunday. And I think it's going to play that way this week. It's 85 degrees in Houston today. It was 80 here Sunday. By Saturday morning, it's going to be 50s, probably 41, 42 for Sunday morning. So you get cold air down there and you make that ball not fly as far on a big course like this. I think it's going to be a very, very challenging course. Tom Doak did the redesign. I went down there when they were doing the redesign. Where I used to work in Houston or San Antonio, my corporate office was in Houston, and I was down there with our CFO, and I went and looked at all of it. There's a course here in Ardmore called Dornick Hills, which is a very famous Tom Doak redesign as well, and it reminds me of that. Driving distance is going to matter to it, but it has a little bit of Colonial and maybe RBC into it, where you still have to be on the right side. You have to know where to hit it to, so you have an angle at the green to be able to attack it. Because if you get off very slope, undulated type fairways, you could roll out, you get up in that rough. It's not as thick as what it would be for public play. They chop it down a little bit because they're playing so long, but you could have some very long irons into a lot of these greens, which brings that short game. To me, it's really, brings that total game into that. Around the green needs to be important this week. Putting, if you look at some of Tom Doak's quotes and stuff, it's tough because there is a lot of 3 putts. They're big greens you may hit, but inside the shorter putts, it seems like it's pretty straightforward. So inside 10 feet, maybe not as difficult as what you would see in other places, but the lag putting is important. So, good off the tee, but in play, I think is very important. Being solid around the green, being able to get up and down, save your pars and move on, because there's just not a ton of birdies here, and you got to avoid those big numbers. And I say that with laughing because Kokrak, if you remember last year, he finished like 6 or 7 over on Friday, the last 5 or 6 holes, and goes on and still wins the tournament. He had a big lead at that time. Obviously, he got a bunch of birdies, but everybody's going to see bogeys and potentially doubles as well. And so to be able to bounce back, grind out, those are the kind of guys I'm looking for, guys that aren't afraid to grind this thing out. And if they're here this year, other than the new guys, I assume they either feel comfortable with it or like it, because we've seen if you look at last year's field to this one, it's dramatically a lot weaker than what we saw last year. And I don't know, you have maybe more insight than me. I don't know if that's because guys say, man, I don't want to grind in the second week of November. I'll say that for major season, or that, they're just like, I don't want to play that tough of a course right now, or what. But we've seen it decrease in strength now coming on the third year of field that we're playing with.
Well, I think the top players, the big name players, are exhausted. I mean, just from how much golf they've been playing, they're trying to get some time off. It's an opportunity, obviously, for your middle tier, your rookies, lower tier players. I had Russell Knox in the studio, and he talked about, look, the fall season is important to him. He's done fairly well in the fall season, and he needs to get out there and make some hay when some of these other guys aren't around. So I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it, I just get the feeling that the players don't really like this golf course too much. I think that's just kind of the sense that I get. It's not their favorite. This Memorial Park golf course, as you mentioned, par 70, they have 5 par threes. Distance, I agree, is going to weigh out here some. You can let it go here. Guys will miss more fairways on average, I think, here than other tournaments on the PGA Tour. They'll miss more greens on average versus other PGA Tour events. So I think the short game is noted here. When you look at it overall, at least from my statistics, strokes gain putting, man, it just weighs way out, and even slightly ahead than strokes gain approach, which you don't see much with tournaments. So you better roll the rock here. I mean, you're going to have to make some putts, and you're going to have to save some pars. To your point, it feels like that 10 to 15 foot range. You're going to have to knock some of those down, whether to save par or capitalize on some birdies. Because you look at it historically, 2021, Jason Kokrak won here. He was only 10 under par. Carlos Ortiz won in 2020. He was only 13 under par. Now, both those guys, folks, they're not here. They're probably in, they're probably on some island with a drink that has an umbrella in it because they've got 3 months off before they play and start up again on Live, I think in February. Now, Scheffler finished second last year, Hideki second in 2020. Both those guys are here. So, so as you mentioned, the field's not great, and we get into the odds here to kind of give our thoughts on who we're looking at. I actually did fairly well here last year and made some money. Scheffler is bet all the way down to 550. Texas kid coming over, finished second last year. There's Burns, 12. Finau certainly checks out, I think, on this type of golf course at 16-1. Aaron Wise, I mean, another tournament, another top 20, you would have to think 16. There's my boy, Taylor Montgomery, 20-1. And then Maverick McNeely, 20-1. Montgomery and McNeely at 20, and those are very short odds for both of those guys. But they can putt, right? I mean, they can fill it up, and that's kind of what you're needing here. I don't like 20-1, but I love Taylor Montgomery. He's long. He's an excellent putter. I think he's the best putter on the PGA Tour. And all right, I'll wait for some superior some irons here. Just maybe Montgomery gets his first win here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think the narrative, especially in the DFS streets, is it's all putting. And while he's been unconscious putting, especially this fall swing, with top 15 after top 15 and top 10, I mean, his stats aren't horrible either. Outside of it, it's not all putting. Now it is heavy weight on putting, no doubt about it. But you just mentioned this is one of the rare times of the year where putting is even outdoing approach at times. Looking at some regression on the stats type deal, I don't hate it. I especially think because he is long off the tee, and that'll come into his advantage. If he does okay with the irons here, the one thing I don't know much about, just because we hadn't seen him a whole lot, is how good is his short game around the green, stuff like that. If that's, I'll do some deep dive stuff tonight. If that's somewhat reliable for him, I don't see why he can't be in contention once again.
I think it's pretty good. I think his short game will be probably a little above average on the PGA Tour. And knowing a little bit about him, you look at his last 17 events between the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour. He's finished in the top 15 times. So I mean, this guy is living on the first and second page of the leaderboard. Now, short sample size, albeit, on the PGA Tour. But here's a start. Fortinet, first tournament, 3rd. Sanderson, 9th. Shriners, 15th. CJ Cup, 13th. Worldwide Technology last week, 10th. I mean, this guy's playing some golf, man. And, he's going to chew you up off the tee. I think that's going to play well for him here, his distance. I think his short game is good enough. His putting is ridiculous. All right, give me a positive 3 in approach, Taylor. Give me a positive 3 in approach, and he wins.
Yeah, I think the one you said right next to him is another guy that I had high on my list. He similar, 12th at the Zozo, 18th at the CJ, 10th last week. And then he's played top 20 both times here. And then 3 years ago is a different course, but still down there in Houston, got a 17th. So 3 top 20s this time of the year. That, he's a West Coast guy. So to see that's very encouraging. And he relies a lot on, he can fill it up putting. And I like him just as well. Both those guys, 20 to 25 to 1, depending on the book you're looking at, are strong guys. And I like that they've been playing this fall swing. They're not shaking off rust, anything like that, with 2 weeks to go left in the fall. So I like both those guys. Their numbers, because I'm not probably going any lower than that, unless you start getting into some doubles or something like that with the Euro Tour. But straight up, that's as low as I'll probably go on the board this week.
Yeah, me too. I mean, look, we can be convinced of Scheffler and Burns, of course. I mean, but their odds are so short. Finau, of course. He's 16-1. He played last week. That was his first event since the Tour Championship. So I'm sure he's ready to get back out there again and tee it up this week. I think this is a good golf course for him. And I do think Finau, I've been watching him. I do think his short game has gotten better all of this year. I think he's really become a much better short game player. We know his putting can be a little bit erratic, but I think his putting has settled in too. Statistically, he has trended very nicely around and on the greens since May. It's been pretty solid. So I think if Finau comes out feeling good, knocked a little rust off last week, this could be another really good. And I agree. I probably wouldn't go lower than Finau. Aaron Wise, will be bet up. Almost feels like a top 20 is appropriate for him. Just can't quite seem to do enough to get a win. But now we go lower. Matsuyama, 22, or I should say higher in the odds, 22 Matsuyama. Jason Day, I've been kind of out in front with him. I think Jason Day is starting to put the pieces back together. Had a tough opening round last week, which kind of really shot him in the foot. And then he came back with a great Friday. Henley at 25, who just blitzed him last week, winning. McCarthy, is he ready to win at 35? Putnam, 40. And Naismith is back. Naismith, another one of those guys, off to a really good start here in the fall season, capitalizing on what we talked about. Not all of these big names are here. He has elevated himself this fall, and I think perhaps playing the best golf that he's played on the PGA Tour. And I think the one club that he has to feel really good about is his putter. His putter has a pulse that is, Naismith's one of those guys. And I laugh because, we kind of beat up the no putt guys, right? And Naismith's been on that list a long time, but he's coming out of that. His putting is getting better, folks. And Naismith can strike his golf ball. I'll stop there. I can see. I'm going to play Naismith in a top 20. I don't know if I'm ready to, with some time off, to put him in the winner's circle, but I like Day and I like Naismith in that group.
Yeah, to touch on Finau, I definitely like him this week. He rates out number one for me. Cost me quite a bit of money last week. He was my only guy that missed the cut in my big bullet. Missed it by one too, and started with a triple, like similar to Day, right? Gets a triple on like the fourth hole, and then he shoots 6 under. Starts out a little slow Friday. Eagles coming in late. The PGA scorecard actually had him at 5 under on the app. And I'm running errands. I'm like, all right, he's in. Now I need some afternoon guys to do well. And by the time I get back, it changed to 3 under. So I guess that, they were in Mexico. So I don't know who's doing all that stuff over there. But he got a 24th here 2 years ago. He missed the cut on the number last year. So that doesn't bother me too much. I think a good bounce back week for him. I don't know. Did you get as low as Riley? Because he was the one in that right there around that same group.
Well, no, I actually stopped at, Sahith is 40, Davis Riley and Joel Damon are at 45, and Damon played very good last week as well. So you like Riley, perhaps?
I do like Riley. I like him. He's flashed at times, came back, had a strong week last week. Probably the biggest worry on him, and we've seen it before, especially if he's in contention, is that can he hold it together that final round? And he has his bogey avoidance isn't as strong as I'd like, but his approach numbers are very, very solid. His driving numbers that I looked at are very solid. Potentially a good top 20 bet. He's right there in that same range as Neesmith. I like Neesmith. I wish we'd seen him since Zozo. That was my only kind of thing, was he's been off since Zozo. So this isn't a course. I don't want people to have to shake off rest of this course.
Exactly. Yep.
But he played plenty before that, so I don't think he's too out of tune. And he definitely is on my short list on the DraftKings side at 8,900. In betting side, he's right there with Riley, like you said. You can probably get a good top 20 number, or even top 10 if you want to go down that route. I do like Matsu a lot. You mentioned him for a minute. I don't mind his number either. And he's played a little bit. Second here 2 years. Yeah, Matsu.
Okay, Hideki, yeah.
And it's weird because it's weird that I think anybody, I don't want to say can get a hot putter around here, but when you see guys like Matsu got second here, Luke List 11th last year, these are guys that are just typically their weak is putting. So it seems like if guys maybe long-term aren't the best putters, but I see that they've done decent here or even better than over their normal, I'll definitely take a strong look at that, because they may go, hey, I just like, these are pure greens. One thing about they're quick, pure Bermuda greens. Matsu's done what the Masters. I know those are bent, but maybe that speed type stuff for some of these guys are like, hey, if I can see the line, I know that's it, I'm good with it. I'm good at these greens versus whatever other kind of greens they may be on. So I wouldn't rule out a bad putter just because we're saying putting's emphasis, because you've seen guys like Matsu and List do well here. But I do like Riley out of that, like you said. And I don't mind Neesmith either. I'm there with you on him as the two I like in that group you mentioned.
Yeah, if Naismith is not a win ticket for me. I think it'd probably be a late rally top 20. It feels like. I love Jason Day. I think Jason Day is. You're going to be hearing from Jason Day here. I kind of got out in front with him, and he's had a nice fall. Shriners 8th, CJ 11th, 21st last week at the Worldwide Technology, and that's with an awful third round. I mean, first round, and I mean he turned it on after that. The thing with Jason Day has always been he's a terrific short game player, and he's a terrific putter, and he's got enough length off the tee. He's never been a great iron player. That's always been kind of his thing. And now the work that he's doing, he's becoming a nice iron player, and he's really excelling with his irons. And you can see the difference. I sat there and watched him talk to his coach when I was in Vegas, and some nice differences in his swing from a technique standpoint to protect his back. And I think he's really starting to reap the benefits of that. So I think Jason Day is full of confidence. He comes into a place he's played pretty well. And Jason Day back in the winner's circle, maybe? I hope so, because that would go straight to my checkbook. Real quick on Hideki. It's interesting with Hideki. I took a deep dive on him. And what's kind of held him back, when you think of Hideki, like what holds him back? His flat stick, right? I mean, he's like, man, he can't make enough putts. But then all of a sudden he putts well, and there he goes. It's been his driver. His putter's been pretty good. His putter's been pretty good. His driver's been kind of crooked. If you figure that out, then I think Hideki gets some good vibes going here again. I like what you're saying there as far as getting back on those greens. I think Hideki's putter's working. He just needs the ball. He needs to get the ball and play a little bit.
Yeah, and this is not a course you want to be fighting your driver on. You won't make it to Saturday if you got the two-way miss or something here. You're going to be battling. And Day's on my radar a lot. I think the perception for him will be he's too high priced when you're talking DraftKings. In any kind of modeling that we all use, he's not going to pop because he had so much bad. If you're going longer term, such that bad, he hadn't caught up to all. If you look short term, he looks really good. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, but most people go back 50 rounds or something like that. He's not going to pop and look well.
Nope.
So he's a guy you can put right there. A 7th here 2 years ago, made the cut last year. I think it could be a good spot to jump on him, and a good number. I've seen him as high as 33 out there, and I think that's a solid number, just outright as well. He's potentially on that list.
Yep. Joel Damon has been trending well, played very well last week, but kind of leading up to that, I think Joel's starting to figure some things out, making some putts, which kind of tends to hold him back. We know he's a good iron player. We start working down here. Noren at 50, Hadwin at 50, Pendrith, Taylor Moore, Griot, all at 50. Will Gordon, now coming back from the Corn Ferry Tour, has his second go here on the big circuit. Let me pull him up real quick. That's one guy that I did not look at, but has played some nice golf. Will, you look at him, third last week, making the cut at the Shriners. He made the cut up in Bermuda, made the cut at Shriners, made the cut at Sanderson, made the cut at Fortinet. So, look, he's made every cut since, here in the fall season and putting something together. Will's decent. His driver, I think, will be good enough here. His iron game can be a little bit erratic. I think his short game is usually probably right around average, and then his putter can be hot and cold, like a lot. But I would have to think Will Gordon is one of those guys building some confidence here in the fall. I don't know if I'll play him, but I just wanted to mention him as he's worked himself back on tour and having some success here, making a lot of cuts. Perhaps a top 20 building off of that third last week would be in order. Anybody in the 50s there that I mentioned that would Smalley's at 65. I like Alex Smalley here as well. I'll take you to there.
PXG has done it again with the launch of a new lineup of drivers, fairways, hybrids, and irons. The new
Gen 5 golf clubs deliver significantly increased MOI, faster ball speeds, longer distances, and tighter dispersions, all coupled with the exceptional feel and sound golfers have come to expect from PXG. Schedule your custom fitting or buy online at pxg.com.
Yeah. Well, that's the guy I was going to go to next. So first one will be Taylor Moore. I love Taylor. I like Taylor Moore a lot. In my 5 of my main 6 stats I looked at, he's top 20 in those 5. 5th in par 3 scoring, which with 5 par 3s, that's on my list this week. 23rd at CJ Cup, 12th at Zozo. Missed a cut here last year, but not by much, I don't believe. And so, but I do like he's seen it. That gives me a positive. Played a lot in the fall. I like him in that range. And then the second one was right where you were getting to, Smalley. I just always have him as a grinder, and anytime it's a tougher track, that kind of stuff, he goes higher on my list, and he's coming in pretty good form, like 11th at Bermuda, 12th or 25th at Zozo. Played here last year and got 15th. So that's a huge positive to me. Nothing's going to pop off with him, but that's just, sometimes you go by watching a lot of golf also, but he's just a grinder type guy. And I think he'll be right there again this week, coming into Sunday.
Yep. I totally agree on that. Taylor Moore, it's interesting at 50. That could be, I just don't play a lot of Taylor Moore. I mean, that's kind of on me, but I might take a little deeper dive at that. Mackenzie Hughes, back in the field, had a win earlier. He's at 65 with, I mentioned Smalley. Dean Burmester at 65. Patrick Rogers, 65. Munoz, 65. Then we go Wyndham Clark, Sepp Straka, 70. And then I'll take you all the way down to 80, where we've got Adam Schenk, Grayson Sigg, Harris English, Davis Thompson, who I think I like Davis Thompson a lot as a player. I need to kind of look at him a little deeper here, maybe on this course. Justin Lauer, who's had some success this fall. Lee Hodges, who's been playing decent at 80. But I'll tell you, I spent a little time with Davis Thompson in Vegas, and that dude's got skills. He's solid through the bag. And you want to talk about getting it done with your driver? That dude gets it done with the driver. I mean, that's a weapon. Georgia Bulldog, maybe a little inspired last week. Henley, Harmon, 1-2. Georgia ranked number 1 in football after beating Tennessee. Davis sitting there like, okay, get a little dog in me too. Maybe going to come out, get his first win at 80 to 1. I'll throw him in there. I'm throwing Davis Thompson in there. I don't know if I'm just feeling crazy or fatigued at this point, or maybe both. I don't know, but I'm gonna give you a little Davis Thompson at 80.
Yeah, he's on my list. He ranks top 30 in my overall stuff I'm looking at. Hasn't played in a while. That was the one knock, but definitely a pedigree kid. And there's some of these kids I get on early, just on pedigree. I was early on Tagala, Cam Young. I was one of the first on him. And pedigree kids, I'll ignore some of the noise and just say, I just try. If things get clicking for them, they can go right. And I'll take chances on those guys. A little bit more unknown, but I definitely will. Lee Hodges, I believe you mentioned. I liked him a lot this entire fall. I liked him last week. He finished 38th. He had a 7th at CJ Cup. Played here last year, made the cut. Nothing crazy at 46, but I like all that, especially at that number. He's just been playing really consistent. His putter's normally kind of his weakness as well. Stats-wise, Tee to Green, he rates out very well for me. So he's a guy I'd keep my eye on. And a guy that I have a love-hate relationship most weeks, but he's been on fire lately. This course doesn't profile to me for him, but I don't really think last week it did either. And he continues to play well. It's Patrick Rogers. Like, he's playing some of his best golf, consistent golf that he's played in a while. There's nothing that pops out to me that says, oh, this is a Patrick Rogers place, but he's been playing so well. And at that big of that number, I don't mind taking a look at him, especially like a top 20.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, 20, let's see here in the fall. He's 54th, 28th, 16th, 3rd, and 27th. Yeah, top 20 feels like you could stretch it that far. Nice driver of the ball. He's one of those guys, man. Rogers is one of those guys that I can sit there and watch hit balls And then you're just like, wait a minute, what are our stats again? Strokes gained approach? Like, that doesn't even make sense. How, he's this big, tall, lean guy, kind of cut, went to Oregon, works with Jeff Smith, beautiful swing. And then I'm going to pull this up. He's like, okay, strokes gained approach. It's like 184th. I'm like, what? How's that even possible? How does he lose strokes gained approach like 7 straight weeks? It doesn't even make sense, So, I don't know. I don't think Rogers has any dog in him. You could convince me as a top 20, but a win, I'd probably push back. But I like your Lee Hodges. Lee, real quick, on his putting, works with Marcus Potters, who's really helped him turn things around in his putting. And Marcus teaches out of here when he's in town. And he's done a nice job with Lee and his putting, and they're trending, the right way. So he's an interesting look, I think. Gup. I think Lee Hodges is an interesting look here. Because I just get the sense that, like you said, tee to green, good, check. He marks all that off. Now his putter's improving, so who knows, right? I mean, it's not like he's got to make a slew of putts. I mean, to get it to 25 under, right? You just, let's get it to 12.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on Hodges. Yeah, I'm with you on Hodges. Adam Long now, as we get into the hundreds, Adam Long's played well here in the last 2 years. I think he's had 2 top 10s, if I'm not mistaken, in the last 2 years. Justin Suz at 100, Adam Long's at 100, Jaeger. I'll probably get back on Aaron Rye at 100 for a top 20. Garen Woodland 100, Francisco Molinari 100, Nick Taylor. There's your boy Luke List at 100, Ryan Palmer, Robbie Shelton, Justin Rose at 100. I'm surprised Rose hadn't went to live yet.
He's one that you would have thought that would fit his profile, right?
Yeah, I thought Rose would go to live. I don't know. Maybe especially
with
a
lot of
he's on a lot of commercials, so maybe they're like, "Hey, man, you go to live," shit.
Right. And a lot of his boys are over there, Poulter and all those guys. You would have thought that would have fit in perfect. There's a couple that stand out kind of down here for me. Rye was one I had listed. I like playing him in general. Burned a lot of people last week, so I like the bounce back mentality, talking DraftKings there, but a 19th here last year, so that's positive. Steven Jaeger is a guy that I had that rates out really well for me this week. Miscut at Bermuda, but has a decent fall going. 35th here last year. Top 25 in the putting model for me. So checking a lot of stuff I like to look at, and that number, he's a good top 20 candidate at that number. And then 2 guys to finish that off that are pure just talent, pedigree, can get there if all things go well. Cameron Champ, I think this course can suit up for him well. He's a big boomer bust guy, but it's a good number for a guy who's won on tour. He just got 8th at the Zozo. Like, I could see him being in the mix, or I could see him missing the cut by 3 on Friday easily. He's that kind of player. And then Brandon Wu. I've been on Brandon Wu every week this fall. He's been in my DraftKings stuff for sure. I love his pedigree. I think he's going to be up there next year on many events. 3 straight top 35s, a 17th at this tournament, but the other course 3 years ago. Nothing's really going to stick out. He does get hot with the putting as well, but I just think he's a good overall talent that I'm willing to take early risk on right now.
And he rates out well in Bermuda as well with Wu. Yeah, I think that's an interesting. Yeah, Wu's just, he's making money right now. He's making cuts.
Right.
He's making money. His driver's been pretty good. His iron's not as good. Around the green, pretty solid. Putter, he's up and down like we all are. Yeah, it's Brandon Wu. Certainly, it's interesting now as we start getting down. And I run my model here, and we start. How far would we take this thing down? You would have to take Molineux with the driver. Feels pretty good on this course, and how he can get it out there. How would that rate out? I've become a little bit of a homer for Hubbard. I like Hubbard, and I'm going to stretch it down to Smotherman too. Not because he's on the pod tomorrow, but just because he actually does. Austin Smotherman. You look at my model here, and I go into a pretty good sample size of 75 rounds and waiting out a lot of the things that we've been discussing. and throwing in some proximity stuff from that. You're going to see a lot of shots from 150 to 175 yards here. You're going to see a lot of shots from 200 plus, the 5 par 3s, driving distance, all those things, putting's weighted out appropriately with strokes gain approach. And Smotherman for me comes in 10th. So, and a lot of names ahead of him that we've been pretty big on too. So I feel pretty good about this model that I did fairly well with last year. And then as I'm looking at it this year, there's Smotherman, so I'm probably going to play a little bit on Austin Smotherman. I'll probably go ahead and put a little on him, sprinkle to win in a top 20 as one of my young guns, as I'll probably do with Alex Smalley too.
Yeah, if he can put 4 rounds together, he's going to win.
Yeah.
He just always has that one round every tournament
right.
that kills him. He was doing well at Bermuda. I think he was close to first round leader. I think Saturday was his bad day and just couldn't, he bounced back Sunday again. But to put the 4 round together, he'd be right there. Guy that just below that crushed my heart. I thought we were going to get a big winner 2 weeks ago is Ben Griffin. I had him at 130 to 1 to win the Bermuda. Was able to hedge off on power there when I saw Griffin starting to implode a little bit. So we made a little bit of profit, but man, 130 to 1 hit in the fall would have been nice. But he looks like he's a real deal. I like that he at least bounced back last week, made the cut, played 4 days, can kind of shake whatever may be in his head from that complete meltdown those last 7 holes at the Bermuda. Come back here and everything he did well there. I think he could be fine there. I think he's 150 on DraftKings. That even if it's a top 20 bet, I think that's a solid play this week.
Well, it's tough to shake, those man, that was tough to watch first and foremost. Tough to watch, especially if you got money on the win. Like, you did. My God.
I just hated it for him. I loved his interview afterwards. I thought it was very professional. Gave me a lot of hope, and I was really banking to see what he did last week. Is he just going to say, I'm just give me to Christmas and we'll work on that. But making the cut and grinding 4 days, I like that positiveness. I don't know if I get to him to win, because if he gets back in that position, maybe that's when that comes back up in his head. But can he mess around and backdoor get around there on top 20? Yeah. What I don't know about him is he a grinder or not? All I've seen him in is these 20 under type events so far. So that's a little bit of the reach, but top 20, I don't even know if they're fully out yet, but at 150 to 1, he's got to be a pretty decent top 20 bet. So I like him. And I like Smotherman. Like you said, I love him for a top 20 because I just don't know if I can see him closing yet. So yeah, you sprinkle a little outright and get the top 20, or if you're in a place that has the each way type stuff, he's a candidate for that type of bet for sure.
Yeah. You're starting to get into some odds, right? And top 20, you'll get something decent there. And Piercy at 200 to 1, he's played well here. He played well last week. If you want to keep stretching here at 200, I like this Carl Yuan too. What a trip he is. I got to spend some time with him in Vegas, and he actually lives not too far from my studio here. Yeah, I didn't know that, and he told me. I'm like, what? You live? Yeah. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, shit, we'll get you in the studio then. He's fun. I like him. He's got those gyrations after he hits it. Rookie out there kind of earning his keep. I feel like he's, there's got to be, see how he's, let me hold on here. I don't think he didn't last week, right? He wasn't up there last week. No. Real quick here. Here it comes, pulling up right now. Yeah, I was going to say, he's been a little bit on the struggle bus. It's been 3 straight missed cuts this fall. So driver's been good. Approach has been decent. It's just been he is around the green and putting. It's been he's had a chilly putter. So he's been getting there. He just hasn't been getting it up and down and making enough putts. So probably pass on you on this week. My boy Higo, I think Higo's going the wrong way. 200 to 1. I don't like where his game's heading.
Yeah, you called him the week he won. I mean, I don't know if that was pot I was on or just before it, but I mean, you nailed that one. But he certainly has not had it together. Very Michael Kim-ish. When Michael Kim won, and went. But now he's starting to come back a little bit. But man, they get sideways. You said one that I do like. Piercy's a guy that I like.
Yeah, I think you have to look at Piercy. think
He
you have to
plays
look at
Texas.
Piercy.
Plays the wind well. I don't know how much the wind's going to come when that cold front comes through. There's going to be some wind there, but a 32nd here, a 19th hitter. Last 2 years he's played this 2 other times, different course obviously, but a 24th and a 19th. So played well down there in that area, and this course specifically, a 32nd last week. He was actually and you're from the my doc of the week type deal I do. 1% owned last week. I loved him. He gets out, flirts with the first round leader, and fights around all weekend, gets the 32nd. But at the 1%, I think he was like $6,500 last week. Paid out great. So this week in this world, a top 20 there is certainly viable for him, especially just looking at his history here. And at 200 to 1, top 20 is going to pay off nice. And I think that's a very good bet that you mentioned.
Yep. Yeah, and Piercy is Piercy now. He was with the same coach for a long time, and then he made a switch, I want to say a few months ago. And I think that switch may be kind of, I don't know, just a new chapter, perhaps, kind of re-energized him, which that happens from time to time. And I think he's been playing some pretty good golf out there. So I think you have to look at Piercy and the way he's playing, and certainly a golf course that he likes. All right. You go any further than that down? I mean, that's 200 to 1. Any like a James Hahn of any interest to you at 200?
There's a FOMO bet that I'll do just because I love this guy. I think I listened to him too on your, not maybe Frog. I can't remember who interviewed him, but and he hasn't done well this fall, but I think he's got it in him, and it's Callum Tarum. I like the kid.
Callum was on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked him. I loved him in the interview. He was cracking me up with the slow play when he didn't call nobody out, but he kept talking about it. I just like him in general, and so I think that's a FOMO deal for me. He still rates out well. He's 200 or somewhere around there, and so he's one of those guys I'll be sprinkling on anytime. He hadn't played well. He's been a little off lately, but I just like his talent and where I think he can be down the road.
Yeah, he was funny. That was a good interview, and talking about slow play and the whole bit. Yeah, I was looking at where he rates out. Yeah, he's up there too. Yeah, Callum Tarum. So, all right. Yeah, I think that's probably as far as I'm going to take it down. As I was pulling up some of my other stuff here, everything's kind of pushing me back up to, we had our bets early, and I did mention Davis Thompson, but I think I'll go ahead. I'm going to play Davis to win as well at 80. I think I mentioned that. The Bulldog. Yeah, I'm liking him a lot. I think he's an up and comer. You start like getting out in front with some of these guys, which we've done a fairly good job of on the podcast. Like, okay, here's like the next group that's gonna win, and in my mind, at what I'm learning here, and like, I like Taylor Montgomery. He's going to win. Taylor Montgomery is talented. He'll figure out enough with the irons. He's too long and good off the tee. He's too damn good of a putter, and it's going to come together. I like him. And Davis Thompson is another one that's right there with me. Like, I got to get out in front because it's going to happen with him. It's like, it feels like we were talking about with Sam Burns, and like we've been talking about Mito Pereira, but Mito, he hasn't quite got that win yet.
Yeah.
But
Smotherman's another one you mentioned that he's going to win at some point.
Smotherman feels, I think Smotherman would win if you put it four together. Like, he's playing 3 of the rounds well enough. He's got to get that 4th one. Davis feels maybe like a little more of a secure, but I think he's really well put together, his game, and his driver is a weapon, folks. I'm telling you, his driver is a weapon. He's long and he's accurate. And I think he was, if they keep strokes gain off the tee on the Korn Ferry Tour, he would be first when he came out. I mean, he's long and he's dominant off the tee.
He's got limited stats for me, and he's still. I have a combined driving stat on my site that we use, and he's 13th in this field. So that's very for not being too much. That's pretty strong already. And so I mean, I can believe that for sure.
Quiet kid, just to himself. He's played a lot of big tournaments. So, all right, those are my 2 guys that are on my list to win. I got to be on them when they win, right? Because if I'm not, then it's like, what the hell am I doing, right? Like, what I'm talking about them, but why am I not betting them? Who cares what the odds are? Just bet them. All right, Taylor's 20. It's not great. I'm going to bet him. Davis Thompson's 80. I'm going to bet him. Like, I'm not, you gotta get out in front. And when it happens, you're going to make up some of that money that you didn't, but that 80-1 would be nice this week if it happened. I mean, the field's, like you said, it's significantly weaker. I don't think Crew likes this place. The Houston Open and the timing, where it used to be versus where it is now. It used to be before the
Mastership.
And now it's, suffocating here in November.
You get past the top guys and it's anybody's game. I mean, Finau, Scheffler, Matsu. I mean, after those guys, all these guys are right there. The two that I would give right now would be Davis, Riley, and Smalley are the two that I'll lock in for sure this week. 45-1 and 65-1s. I've seen them a little different in other places, but on DraftKings, those are those two, and those two will be in my card for sure.
All right, there you have it. Houston Open. It's the 46th event on the PGA Tour. We'll be back next Tuesday for the 47th, which is the RSM. And we're shutting it down on a Tuesday on the Stripe Show podcast. Gup, thank you, man. Go yourself another cup of coffee or take a nap or do something, because I know you're busy with football too.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Yep.
PXG has done it again with the launch of a new lineup of drivers, fairways, hybrids, and irons. The new Gen 5 golf clubs deliver significantly increased MOI, faster ball speeds, longer distances, and tighter dispersions, all coupled with the exceptional feel and sound golfers have come to expect from PXG. Schedule your custom fitting or buy online at pxg.com.